How do you do, fellow gamers, and welcome to another edition of Random News of Gaming, the monthly news roundup series that's usually late, but never wastes your time, and gives you what you really want. Games, release dates, a bit of fanboy salt every now and then, and my sub-zero IQ takes on gaming news. Which, by the way, there's not really much interesting to talk about this time. Some major news stories, yeah, but not really much to say about them. One thing I should mention, though, is that I have not been providing links to my sources for articles in the description, and the reason for that is that YouTube has a problem with using links to sites that their bots arbitrarily deem unsafe or whatever. I'll be naming the source in the video itself instead, which is something I really should have been doing from the start, but oh well.
My source is that I made it the fuck up!
Let's get into the garbage. Unfortunately, October seemed to be the month for layoffs for the whole ass video game industry. The big one being Epic Games laying off almost 900 employees, while they claim to be having financial difficulties, including half the people working at Bandcamp, which Epic bought only a year and a half ago. It's kind of weird to see this happen to the creators of fucking Fortnite, but maybe this is a sign that Abomination is finally dying down. Hopefully. But as a reaction to their financial woes, Epic Games announced the thing that I said was going to happen last month after the whole Unity debacle, which, by the way, resulted in CEO John Riccitiello stepping down as CEO. Shocking. Not really. But if you're a game developer, do not use the Unreal Engine if you can help it because, to no surprise, they announced that they are planning on changing Unreal to a paid service model, whereas before, it was free to use until you actually published something, I think. This is similar to what Adobe did for their Creative Suite and, well, everyone disliked that, and just inspired more software piracy than ever before. The fact that anyone could pick up and play around with the Unreal Engine was one of the best things about it. Did a bit of it myself with Unreal 4. I can't find if this pricing model will only affect Unreal 5 Plus going forward, but still, it sucks to see this happen. Again, if you're a developer, look for a free or open source alternative such as Godot or FNA, even if they aren't yet as robust as Unreal or Unity. The peace of mind may just be worth it. You don't want to be financially tied to a company that bootlicks Tencent, do you? Among the other companies that laid off its staff includes BioWare, which isn't surprising really, or at least it wouldn't be if they didn't have a major upcoming release that is Dragon Age 4. Doesn't sound like that game's future is too bright, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Telltale Games was another one, even though they also have a major upcoming release, The Wolf Among Us 2, which doesn't bode well for that game either. For the sake of the fans, hopefully these games will be able to pull through and release in a positive state, but keep your expectations very, very low. Lowest even. But there's still one more company affected by layoffs, and it's a big one. Sony. Including some of Naughty Dog, despite them supposedly working on that multiplayer portion of The Last of Us 2, that I'm convinced doesn't actually exist. There's been tons of rumors that it's being cancelled altogether, but we don't really know yet. But also Bungie, which is like, what the fuck? You just acquired them, and they have Marathon coming up, and they're still maintaining Destiny 2. I don't get this industry sometimes. Maybe these studios became bloated or something. But all this shit is a big one of many reasons I lost any motivation to become a game developer myself. I'd really hate to be a Sony developer too, because apparently the Sony hack I mentioned in a previous RNG video compromised the data of around 7,000 current and former employees. If you're just a PlayStation user, you're fine. Probably. But damn, it sucks to see these devs get the short end of the stick over and over again. Speaking of acquisitions, it's finally done. The Microsoft Activision Blizzard merger is finally complete. About damn time. I was getting tired of hearing about it and all the concern trolling from PlayStation fans. Some people have said this will result in a lot of restructuring, which includes a lot of layoffs for Activision Blizzard, so we'll have to wait and see on that. But there was one positive to come out of this. Bobby Kotick won't be with them anymore by 2024. Good riddance. Don't expect anything to change overnight, or at all. And while we're at it, let's take a quick detour to our regular Let's All Laugh at Activision Blizzard again. Well, this isn't that big of a deal at least. They released Diablo 4 on Steam and, well, it's interesting to see what the people really think about their games for a change, now that they're not exclusive to that walled garden of thorns that is Battle.net. I half expected the overall score to be lower, but I guess Diablo 4 is at least a somewhat decent game at the end of the day. Regardless, Steam reviews never fail to amuse.
He's out of line, but he's right.
Skullgirls. Remember what happened a few months ago? The developers censored the fuck out of the game and the original official artwork, resulting in a lot of backlash from fans, especially those who backed the game financially in the early days. Well, Since they were allegedly unable to censor the Xbox 360 version, they just delisted it from the store instead. Wow. This just seems petty as hell. If you have an Xbox 360 with this game on the hard drive, keep it for as long as you can. That thing may go up in value like the PT demo did. Maybe. Shortly after I gave Ubisoft a small W for moving Assassin's Creed Mirage's release date up instead of back like most games, they had to go and ruin it by inserting DRM into the PC version on launch day. A AAA game having DRM wouldn't be worth talking about normally, but shoving it in on day one means that everyone that got review copies of the game before launch were able to play it and base the review off a version that likely performs a lot better than it does now. Pretty scummy move. This company can't seem to just take a W even when one is handed to them on a silver platter. I've also heard the game is mid at best, so if you're interested in this game for some reason, just wait till it's $5. Also, Skull and Bones got delayed again. Aside from Assassin's Creed, there were a bunch of other major releases last month, such as Super Mario Wonder, which people seem to like quite a lot. Sonic Superstars, which people seem to like as well, unless you got it on PC because it requires an Epic Games account to play, and is bloated with DRM that makes it run like ass. Alan Wake 2, which seems to be a mid follow-up to the cult classic with a lot of technical problems as well. City Skylines 2, which seems to be a disappointment and also has a lot of technical problems. There's also Skull Island Rise of Kong. Actually, never mind, we don't talk about that one. But I will have to bring it back up later on, you'll see. But the one that seemed to drum up the most drama online by far was Marvel's Spider-Man 2, exclusively for the PS5.
One game, I don't know why. I bought a PS5 with no games to buy.
Hey look, they have 2 games now, I guess. For now. Anyway, there's been a lot of console war drama surrounding this game, including some Xbox fanboys spoiling it for people for no reason before launch. But it also seems to be in a similar situation to The Last of Us 2, with a lot of people on a certain side of the culture war criticizing the game very heavily. Most of this stuff is obviously very subjective, but one thing that isn't is the bugs. There's quite a bit in this one, most of which are utterly hilarious, so hey, I did the same thing for Starfield, so let's do this shit. Truly the moments we as gamers live for, just saying. Some people are saying, however, that a lot of this game's technical issues are intentionally being left out of most quote-unquote professional reviews. And if that's true, that's a serious problem. I already have zero trust in any professional gaming journalism publication, so it doesn't surprise me one bit if it's true. But I think this Forbes article brings up an interesting point, that neither Spider-Man 2 nor Starfield are as buggy as people on the internet suggest, and it's just a result of everything being widespread on social media, making it seem like they are. Who knows? Regardless, the game has sold very well, that much is undeniable, and became one of, if not the best-selling PS5 game to date, with 2.4 million copies sold on day one. Oh yeah, the Metal Gear Solid collection also came out, and it sucks. Imagine my shock. On PC, it has so many technical problems, including being unable to play in higher resolutions, which modders were able to fix in a matter of hours. Konami, you had one job, and you fucked it up.
I expect nothing, and I'm still let down.
But it's not all rainbows and sunshine and butt plugs for PlayStation fans, as they recently announced a PS5 Slim model, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. This is the worst console revision I've ever seen. Normally a Slim model of a console comes out to cut costs and make it cheaper for both the company making it and the people buying it. But no. The digital version of this thing will be $50 more than the original digital-only PS5. And if you want a disc drive, you have to buy it separately, which makes it the same price as the original PS5 disc version, at least in North America. In other regions, it might actually be more expensive than the original PS5, but even if it's the same, you're still getting less for the same price, because the original came with a vertical stand while the Slim doesn't. You have to shell out another $30 for a simple stand, which is like, what the fuck? Sony is becoming the Apple of the games industry, and it's not good. Oh, and to make things even worse, you can't even use the separate disk drive unless you connect to the internet, so it really just defeats the purpose of getting a physical disk drive in the first place unless your console is jailbroken or something. I hate everything about this system, and I feel vindicated for that old video I made about why the 9th gen was looking like trash. But hey, over on the Xbox side of things, we have some good news. Sort of. Actually, not really, because the way Xbox exists in current year makes any game showcase moot, such as the Xbox Partner Showcase that happened a week ago. Keyword: partner. Meaning none of these games are anything that Xbox can claim as a reason to buy one of their pointless systems, because all of these games shown are on PC. And I think most of them are on PlayStation 2. I guess the silver lining is that some of these games got some needed exposure, such as Manor Lords, which got its release date of April 26th. I've played the demo of that a while back, and hot damn does that game have potential. Hopefully it doesn't get delayed because I want it ASAP. On PC, and not Xbox of course. Lastly, we have the big N being the big dumb yet again. And holy shit, I cannot wrap my head around this. It might not mean anything to you if you're not a Smash player or even a general competitive player, but Nintendo released some interesting guidelines for any tournaments involving Nintendo games, most notably Smash Bros. Like not being able to sell any food or beverages at the tournament, including fucking water. Like any venue that follows all of these guidelines would lose money, guaranteed. It's like they are trying to completely kill any interest in one of their best flagship games, and for what reason? I've heard people say that it has something to do with Japan's very outdated and stringent copyright and IP laws forcing their hand, but I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens, because some tournament organizers like Hungrybox have basically said, fuck you, I'm gonna host my tournaments the way I do it anyway. So look him up if you want to see how this plays out, because there is no way Nintendo won't look like utter assholes if he has sent a cease and desist. What a disaster.
A lot of people ask why. Why treat the customer this way? Why? Because fuck them, that's why.
Well, that's all the news I have to talk about today. And before you ask, no, I didn't forget. We have one more segment before we get to the releases. The worst take of the month. Man, I need to make an intro for this segment. And I saved it for last because it's not just some brain-dead fanboy tweet related to one of these stories. It's a whole-ass article by none other than the absolute anti-consumer bootlicker fanboys that work for a little website called Nintendo Life. Quote,
Soapbox. Switch 2 doesn't really need backwards compatibility.
I don't like where this is going.
Why? Why does this article exist? Why are you giving them these ideas, you short-sighted corporate shills? It's a bit long, so I don't want to cherry-pick everything Mr. Gavin Lane has to say here, but you can read for yourself on screen. Basically, he projects his own habits as a gamer onto the entire Switch user base as an excuse for them to not have backwards compatibility. If you wanted to play your older Switch games, you could just play them on your Switch because you'll still have it, right? If you keep both systems, whipping out the old one isn't all that inconvenient because it's small, right? It would be cool to play Breath of the Wild or Mario Odyssey or Smash Ultimate on my Super Switch, but I don't need to, so you don't need to either, right? Oh, and it should be completely separate from the original Switch because of pirates and stuff. Totally something we as consumers totally need to concern ourselves with.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
And he says all this while admitting a lot of the benefits of backwards compatibility in the article itself, such as being able to trade your old hardware in to save money, having all your games on one device, and others.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
But beyond these bad arguments and excuses for Daddy Nintendo, putting this article out is irresponsible and anti-consumer, as it's certainly possible that people at Nintendo, at least on the American and European side, actually look at articles on this site. This is not an argument I usually like to make, the "you have a responsibility to use your platform responsibly" argument, but the type of people who usually end up working at sites like these would totally subscribe to such a notion. And if we were to use that line of reasoning, what you've done here is actively come out against the consumer by advocating for less functionality, less options, and less accessibility. Putting these ideas and excuses out there to justify not having backwards compatibility puts you at odds with the people you should be catering to with a website such as yours. It's ironic you call these editorials the soapbox, because you need to get off it.
Hey, listen. You didn't need to post that. Why? Why did you post it? It's too late now to delete it. Now we just have to live with it.
Man, that was painful. I hope next month has a shitty take that we can just laugh at instead like the last two. But let's get into the meat of this video, the releases. It's November, so naturally we have a lot of them. Probably something that'll interest you no matter what kind of gamer you are. Sometimes games come out of early access out of nowhere, or there's no way to know unless you're following its Steam page, so I do have a few from October as well. Starting off, we have Era, a twin-stick bullet hell shooter roguelite that came out of early access on October 3rd. It's got a very nice art style with some cute waifus, so you can still enjoy yourself even if you get wrecked over and over. The one game I did miss last month was Laika, Age Through Blood, which came out on October 19th. A game just for you furries, Metroidvania lovers, and motorcycle enthusiasts. Honestly, this game looks pretty sick despite that bizarre mishmash of elements. Maybe I'll give it a go. On October 19th, World of Horror came out of early access just in time for the spooky season. This is a 1-bit point-and-click horror game inspired by Lovecraft and Junji Ito that looks like it may be the best use of 1-bit graphics I've ever seen because this shit looks really unsettling. Mistrogue, Mist in the Living Dungeons came out of early access on October 26th. Another roguelite that unfortunately seems to be half-baked in certain areas based on the reviews. But some people like it, so if you want a roguelite with JRPG and dungeon crawler or mystery dungeon elements, it may work for you. On Halloween, Little Goody 2 Shoes came out. This game's release date came out of nowhere after I made my previous RNG video, so I don't want to hear it, you baka. It's not like I would totally play a shoujo-inspired adventure RPG with horror and yuri elements and multiple endings or anything. I just went full tsundere mode for no reason. Yeah, I'm cringe. Deal with it.
Perhaps I am cringe, but that makes me free.
Moving swiftly on, we have one more thing for Halloween. Not really a game, but an update to the mod Tamriel rebuilt for Morrowind that was just shadow dropped while I was working on this video. Andaram, which adds some new areas and cool new stuff to do. And it's really giving me an itch to jump back into the game. Again. After the countless times I've already done so. Time for our November releases, starting with what might be my most anticipated game of the year, Talos Principle II, a first-person sci-fi philosophical atmospheric puzzle game. If you haven't played the first one, I strongly recommend doing so because it's an incredible game. Even if it sounds like something you're not into, just give it a try at least. I even had it in my Top 40 Soundtracks video series, which you should also go check out if you haven't yet, just saying. On November 2nd, Achilles Legends Untold comes out of early access. A mix of Souls-like inspired combat with a top-down action RPG style similar to Diablo, set in the world of Greek mythology. Looks pretty badass, not gonna lie. For the King 2 comes out on November 2nd. A fantasy squad-based turn-based strategy combat game. Looks like a fairly simple game, apparently has co-op too somehow. The last game for November 2nd is one I didn't really want to include at first, because it looks like hipster garbage. But then I saw the trailer and... Thirsty Suitors. Looks like a blend of Scott Pilgrim, Jet Set Radio, and... fucking yick. This batshit insane looking game might actually have potential, but it could just end up being another yick. On November 3rd, we have Delicious Dungeon, a dungeon crawling action RPG roguelite where you cook and eat the monsters you fight, I guess. What could possibly go wrong? On November 3rd, we have the first game featured here with a holiday theme, Ebenezer and the Invisible World, a beautiful Metroidvania inspired by Charles Dickens' legendary A Christmas Carol, a much better alternative to listening to that horrible Mariah Carey song, or posting Padoru memes. You know who you are. On November 7th, we have Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2, a Smash Bros-like that looks like a massive upgrade from the pretty bare bones and janky first game. But you should be careful here, as the publisher is none other than Game Mill, the same publisher that queefed out that dumpster fire King Kong game. Definitely wait until after launch. Consume wisely, nostalgia nerds. On November 7th, we also have a Vampire Survivors-like game, but with a twist. Typecast, a game where you take out hordes of enemies by typing specific keys. Interesting. On November 8th, we have Gunhead, a game that's been a long time coming. It's a very stylistic roguelite first-person shooter with strategy elements, which sounds and looks pretty awesome. Do you like dungeons? Well, we have Dungeons 4 on November 9th. Take on the role of this nice lady to build dungeons and take over the overworld and defeat the heroes of this fantasy RTS world. On November 10th, we have a striking 3D flying shooter game called Air Twister that's reminiscent of the Sega Dreamcast era, and it's made by none other than Yu Suzuki himself, so it's very fitting. On November 13th, we have Hot Springs. I can't escape this shit, man. Spirit Tea is a casual life sim where you run a spooky bathhouse for the restless spirits. Whatever works, I guess. On November 14th, we have Karmazoo, a puzzle platformer where you take control of various characters with sprites that look straight out of the Game Boy. I'm a bit confused on how this game works, but it's labeled as casual, so it's probably simpler than it seems. For you old school weebs out there, we have UFO Robot Grendizer, The Feast of the Wolves on November 14th. A 3D beat-em-up game featuring a giant robot straight out of those cheesy old Japanese shows. Next, we have The Last Faith on November 15th, another one of those Metroidvania and Souls-like fusion games. Seems to be a niche for these kinds of things because this definitely isn't the first one I've covered here, and probably won't be the last. Also on November 15th, we have Wizardom, a boomer shooter based entirely on magic and spellcasting. One look at the main promo art, and you know exactly what you're getting into, as it wears its inspiration right on its sleeve. On November 16th, Flashback 2 comes out, a stylish 2.5D cyberpunk action platformer that looks surprisingly detailed for what's normally a very simple genre of games. For you not-so-old weebs out there, we have Yohane the Perihelion, Blaze in the Deep Blue on November 16th, a cute waifuvania game that's a spin-off of the Love Live Sunshine IP. I thought this was just a series about idols. Shows how much I know. On November 28th, we have one of those interesting titles that was shown off during THQ Nordic's showcase back in August, Last Train Home, a real-time tactics game set in the aftermath of World War I, about a group of Czech soldiers trying to return home from Russian territory. On November 29th, we have Tevi, the very long-awaited follow-up to the highly acclaimed cute bunny girl Metroidvania, Rabby Ribby. If it's anywhere near as good as Rabby Ribby, it will be a banger for sure, so definitely keep an eye on this. Lastly, I have something for you actual social gamers out there, Gangs of Sherwood, a 3D action game inspired by Robin Hood, with many liberties taken clearly. Take up to 3 friends with you for some crazy battles and have some fun. And there we go, 26 games and 1 mod to check out if you're interested. A new RNG record. Give me a break next month, please. I want to be lazy again. Anyway, thanks for watching if you stuck through it to the end. I haven't been making many videos lately due to my own laziness, but I should have one about Kuro no Kiseki 2 out somewhat soon. It's gonna be an interesting one. And maybe I'll do a stream sometime. Some people seem to want it. Whoever voted for Feet, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Just saying.
Degenerates.
But anyway, hope you had a great Halloween with as little cyanide-laced candy as possible. Feel free to subscribe for more. Check out my top 10 videos if you haven't yet. Follow me on Twitter, X whatever, Rumble, and Odyssey, or join my humble Discord server if you want to be one of the cool kids. And as always with this see you next Tuesday of a gaming industry, have high standards, low expectations. Spoderman, Spoderman, does whatever a spoder can. Through a wall, through a floor, ride a bike and clip some more. Look out! Here busts the Spoderman.